So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find a layer of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we understand then Yeshayahu the prophet, mostly then the 65th and 66th chapter related a lot of it with the autumn feast and post-autumn feast, we then read Revelation, or then the recording of the autumn feast. As we read then the 6th chapter and also the 7th chapter, we understand sections of these understandings. Let's then evaluate what will take place with the Gentiles then linked with the Savior himself via the holy cities as per the instructions of Moses and also the prophets and the Shilishim, as then these areas are then shown. We find these layers very true. Let's then read a section of the 6th chapter and then the 11th verse. And each of them was given a white robe, and it was told them that they should be quiet yet a bit longer until the consummation of their quote-unquote brothers, or then those who would encourage each other on a path, then who were then destroyed as they were. So then, what is the understanding of this section? We are talking of the testifiers on behalf of the Messiah. Those people who are living on a Gentile ground, yet on behalf of the Messiah making testimonies. Let's then understand what this means. We are then explaining what goes on in the Holy of Holies of the holy city. So when you read the 6th chapter, what do you understand? You are given then a very glimpse of what's coming when then the spirit realm line is then in the hand of the Messiah himself. When we understand this factor, then we are aware of the seals are already opened, and then the testifiers on behalf of the Messiah prior of the very end. This particular layer shows then the destruction of every Gentile testifying on behalf of the Messiah. What does it mean? Coming a point prior of the movements of the armies against the holy cities, those people making testimony on behalf of the Messiah are then dead. Let's read it again. Then explains of an altar, explains of then the presence of the Messiah himself, explained then the relationship of the Messiah and the Most Holy, and explained then the answer. It came from the Creator himself. Now, if you are never exposed to these understandings, and if you are a person skeptical, explaining away your ignorance, if you then say the revelation is a mystery, then how can you be revealed? Revelation simply explains the ending of this age, the revealing of the second half of the instructions and the prophets until this age closes. Revelation, or Galah. For those people not involved with Eastern culture, when they read this, they get absolutely crazy. Firstly, they don't understand what it means. Secondly, they think it's some sort of recorded code where then the Messiah himself does not let the people understand because of his own truth. This can only come from a Messiah vagabonding in the earth. As explained then, the Messiah coming on a white horse does not make any sense whatsoever. Then the Gentiles, as they are linked in the spirit with the holy cities, as we understand there are 7 cities on Asia Minor, they must be re-established. And prior of these, the first holy city on the land of Cush. These people, they don't control. These people, they simply advise. They advise these people, the Gentiles, what they should do. If they will or not, that's another situation. So then, the seals are open, and then the understanding of the Gentiles then absolutely destroyed prior of the great movement. Why? Because the holy cities must be absolutely protected. There is a reason why there are so many stones on the land of Israel regarding those symbols of sandals. Those stones are going to be used. But as far as the Gentiles are concerned, the 8th verse, and he observed, and behold, a pale horse. In the name of him who sat on it was death. Can you believe it? The Messiah himself, related with the Most Holy, then leading death. Wait a minute. Regarding the situation, let's reread these. The 7th verse. And when he had opened the 4th seal, he heard then the creature saying, "Come and observe." Then the 8th verse. So then, the Messiah is in the Holy of Holies. The Messiah should be engaged with the laws of Moshe, except sacrifices at this point, of animals, and whatsoever is related with sacrifices. He should be absolutely concerned with those who are then in the holy cities. There are 7 cities of Asia Minor, plus there is another holy city on the land of Cush firstly. Then so many other cities and so many other people being linked up in the spirit with the holy cities, each of them with their own problems. And then they have homework to do, because Yeshayahu chapter 1:8 states, then the Gentiles would then serve. They would take care of their vineyards and then their animals. So they are contributing for the Messiah on the holy cities. And then you find in Revelation, then the Messiah guiding death. Can you believe it? Then he saw a pale horse, and the name of him who sat was Death. Can you believe it? And the grave went after him. And there was given him authority over the 4th part of the earth, then to slaughter, gather by famine, death, ravenous beasts. Okay, that was the pale horse. And he opened then the fifth seal, and he saw under the altars. The altar is not altar, truly is then altars. Each holy city, they have their own Ark of the Covenant and the presence of the Messiah upon them. Yet there are many, they are one. And the souls of them who were slain. On behalf of the word of Elohim, plural, 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. Yet we are explaining of the testifiers on behalf of the Lamb. Now, the people of the holy cities, they don't testify on behalf of the Messiah, they function. You know, the word of knowledge, the word of wisdom, and then miracles, interpretation of tongues and tongues, prophecy. You know, some 7 of them. Those people of the holy cities, they function. On the outside of the holy cities, those people who are Gentiles, they testify on behalf of the Messiah. Well, let's verify what goes on with them. And when he had opened the fifth seal, he saw then the altars of the souls of them who were slain, on behalf of the word of Elohim, and on behalf of the testimony of the Messiah, the Lamb, and was then with them. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long? They are asking then the Creator himself. How long then the situation then won't be avenged? For how long the situation then won't be avenged on them that inhabits the earth? And to each of them was given a right robe, and it was told them they should be quiet for a bit longer, until, try to understand, until the servants, the existing servants, then should be destroyed as they were. The understanding is, these people asking are not the ones who are dead. Those people who are dead, they are resting. They must not be disturbed until the time comes for the sounding of the shofar. What those people are asking are those people outside, those who are going through trials and tribulations outside of the holy cities. They are asking, for how long are we going to be enduring this? Then from the Holy of Holies they've heard, until then you are destroyed as the ones previous of you were then destroyed, until the numbers are completed. Then when each of those Gentiles making testimony on behalf of the Messiah, they are destroyed, then the plan continues on. By this time, this layer, however, the 6th chapter, is not going after the 7th, neither before. We have to understand layer by layer, by content and context. But prior of the movements of army against the holy cities, those people outside must be dead. And this is what the Creator himself is saying. Until you people are then dead. Death simply means resting. Until you then join those who were then already gone. Because people don't understand the instructions, they regard death as fear. Death means rest. Those who are the Messiah, they simply rest. The labors of trials and tribulations on behalf of the Messiah, or then teaching those people to maintain themselves in their paths, then they rest from this work. But then, when people they read these and they think this is so tiny, as if they were watching the Messiah riding on a donkey. They think themselves of so inflated with pride and they diminish what they hear. So then, when we hear then what went on with the unfortunate man and then the rich person, there is a chasm amongst them. They simply don't believe it, because they regard themselves higher than what the Creator is saying. That's why they're going to be categorized, as Luke has explained, as far as those people being caught during the time of Lot and Noah. As the Messiah said, so as the end. People are going to begin their relationships and building a barn and take care of their own mundane situations and the cares of this world. Then they're going to be caught unawares and be destroyed. This is what the Messiah is saying. As people read these and they laugh, so people they laughed when the Messiah came in riding on a donkey. You are making fun of him. It shows the rot of pride in people, the condescending spirit. But those are the words of the Creator. Those were not my words. Those prophets, they spoke. There are people that are speaking as representatives of the Messiah via the prophets. You can't reach the Messiah until you reach the prophets. If for some crazy idea you can reach the Messiah without the prophets, then you have the false Messiah. But then, let's try to understand the 6th chapter and the 1st verse. And when the Lamb had opened one of the 7 seals, then he observed, meaning Yohanan, and he heard one of the 4 creatures saying with a loud thunder, Come and observe. And observed he, and there was a white horse. First, then, the Creator does not like horses as far as an animal enticing pride. What did he say as far as having a horse on the land of Israel? They should hamstring those animals and get rid of them. Does not the Creator like horses? Well, he created them. So why did he not like them? Because it would bring pride. He would give them a sense of power of their own. Condescending spirit. Now we got the power, and then who are you? That's why people have the Greco-Roman translation and known as Paul. Paul means tiny. It's a mocking nickname because they thought of Shaliach Shaul as being so tiny. From the Greco translation means tiny Paul. People were reading the tiny. He was condescending, he was put down, he was making fun of. So then, and he went forth, conquering that he might conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, heard the second creature saying, Come therefore and observe then a red horse. And to him who sat upon it was given to take peace away from the... Can you believe it? The Messiah leading a place where then he takes the peace from the earth. The Messiah always gives peace, but then he takes it away. Does not make any sense. And then, worst yet, that they should destroy each other. Can you believe it? The Messiah was extremely upset with one of the Shilishim because he said, should we then have fire come down from heaven and destroy these people? When the Messiah observed to him, you don't know what kind of a spirit you're speaking of. We must not do such a situation. And then he is leading destruction and destroying each other. Then he had opened the third seal, and I heard a third creature saying, Come and observe, behold, then a black horse sat upon it, and had a balance in his hand, and he had his voice in the midst of the four creatures, saying, A quart of wheat of denarius. This means then famine. Then the Messiah is leading famine. So the false Messiah during the time of the 1,000 years of deceit, this is what you have. During the time of the 1,000 years of the Messiah, you had no relation with the destruction during the time he had then the holy cities in his hands. However, after 1,000 years, then came the 1,000 years of deceit. Then you find famine, you find destruction, you find then the peace was taken away from the earth. Because the milk was stolen. He is scoundrelized, unfortunately. Then not only this, and there is a fourth scoundrel of a horse, speaking of the rider on it, and then was death. So the leading white horse is a scoundrel. Where do we find the Messiah? We find him in the Holy of Holies. Precisely as Moshe had mentioned. But then, the understanding you find in the writings of Hebrews. You find in completion of, there was a completion of the instructions. transitioning from the first menorah to the second menorah. First service to the second services. So every time a video like this starts, then from the second tabernacle services. So then, we understand that those people who have yet the luxury of making choices, they can believe whatever junk they want, yet later they either are with the Messiah or they are with the world. They won't have a third choice. Then comes chapter 7 and talks of the 144,000, those people involved directly with the Holy of Holies. Those are obviously saved, but each person linked with the holy cities via the Spirit, they are also saved as long as they are producing fruit. If they are producing fruit and maintaining their lips quiet, then they are bearing fruit. If they don't bear fruit, at the end they are burned with the rest of them. Why did the Messiah mention regarding then, if it does not bear fruit, then at the end the very person maintaining then the vineyard take those branches not producing then the fruit and burn them? Speaking of the second death. So if you are a person that you believe sometimes you don't, because if you are saved once, you are saved always. Negative. It is absolutely conditional. That's why maintenance of the path. Then comes chapter 8, explains then the couple of bombs. Technology today is so advanced, the holy instructions is teaching us. There is a bomb of 10 cubits and the other 20 cubits. And those are then enough for the destruction of this planet. That's much later. And then, very importantly, these chapters, they also come in layers. They give you an introduction of the whole situation, as you would have then the names of the topics and a brief explanation, and then later would become then the content and the context. Each of them linked directly with the prophets. There is not a scrap of it not related with the prophets. And then the merchants of the earth. This topic is extremely important because it shows the relationship of the first son and the second son, trade and tabernacling, the merchants are the very powerful ones of this earth. The 20th chapter explains then times and the seasons, and part of it relates with names. Explains then Gog and Magog, what they did and what they did not, directly related with Daniel. And then comes the times and a half a time, and lots of times. Each of them, they are directly related with the timing of the periods of those feasts. But then, since we know the ending calculation of the Messiah, since he was born and then a couple thousand years later, then you can retract from the end of it and then calculate the rest of in the midst. We are during the Dragonic period. China leads. They are the leaders of the trade at the moment. We are during the time of the first transition, and there is another transition coming, where then the sons of Ishmael, they will guide via then the fuel. When this second transition comes, then far later, then comes the autumn feast itself. Then truly is the end of it. Then comes the pit. You find the pit in a couple of locations. Find chapter 1:7, that is directly related with the 8th chapter, when the blast then takes place. There are a couple of bombs, not only a bomb, couple of them. One of them released in a desert, mountain, burning of petroleum, and the other then on the land. Most importantly is the maintaining of the integrity of the instructions, always mentioning the prophets every time. You find Zechariah, you find Ezekiel, you find Daniel, you find Yeshayahu, you find Yirmiyahu. Every prophet, they always points then the holy cities. Every time. No exception. And they don't control the world. They advise the world. So as it was for 1,000 years. So the Messiah was born then in 4999, from 98 to 99. Then roughly 100 years later came the first holy city on the land of Cush, then 7 cities on Asia Minor, then came Obviously, during this time, the 1,000 years of the Messiah. Then roughly in 6009, you find the ending of the 1,000 years of the Messiah and the starting of the 1,000 years of the seed. In 7009 ended. We are in 71-4. If you use the Creator's calendar, if you use the regular calendar, then 21-4. What we explained earlier regarding then the Messiah. Then we must understand a factor. When we read the instructions line by line, we tend to create then a sense of chronology. Very normal. When you read then the instructions for what they are, the Messiah then, he spent a couple of Yom creation days with the Samaritans. Then the instructions gives us shortly after, then he went to Jerusalem and he was then nailed at the stake. Very nice, fine and dandy. This was the chronology given by the instructions as we know them. As far as the events themselves, then comes the layers involved with it. It was explained before this way, from the chronology given on the instructions, as we understand the recordings of the spring feast. Layered wise, those events must be separated. When the people came to him and said, "Is then Yahweh going then to restore the nation once again?" They were trying to get a glimpse of the future, and the Messiah said, "It's not for you to know the times and the seasons at this moment." In other words, you don't understand not even the holy feasts. Why are you being concerned with the future where this future is not in your power? Then the Messiah did what he did, as he was then positioning himself of ending then the spring feast. Later, when he came from the dead, he spent the whole year, 12 months with his people, and he explained from A to Z what it meant every moment of the entire year. Try to understand. The nation of Israel trained for more than 1,000 years for the coming of the Messiah. Then the Messiah had set aside a whole year where he explained after the completion. Why? Because he was transitioning his people from the first service. The first service had no mercy. The second, they had himself. So the mountain of transfiguration was realized during his time of a whole year with his people. Because the event revealed the future. Earlier he said, it's not for you to know the times and the season at this point. He wouldn't have spent time with his people and then revealing the future if he had not completed the spring feast. So he went over there in the land of the Sumerians. And the mountain of prostration, there he was very welcomed, and there he revealed himself. Showed up to him Moshe, Eliyahu, and then he had revealed himself and revealed the future. So as we read the instructions, every time you find then the Messiah in a personal way involved with explaining the future, such as chapter 24. When he revealed the chapter number 24, he was in the tabernacle over there, or in the temple, explaining the instructions. Was this during the time of the spring feast or during the time of the 12 months? During the time of the 12 months. Because he was explaining areas of already completed rather than under completion. There was a reason why he said it's not for you to know the times and the seasons at this point. So it is true every time there is a revelation. First, the Messiah wanted obedience from his people via the instructions as they promised to obey Moshe. This was the first objective. He first came and pointed the people back to the instructions, as did every prophet. Later, when he came from the dead, then he revealed. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.